Once upon a time, in a remote Hmong village surrounded by towering mountains, stood a sacred tree at its center. The villagers believed that the glittering flowers in the moonlight represented the souls of long-lost lovers. That night, the moon cast a silver glow over the village, and the air was filled with the faint sounds of chanting as elders knelt beneath the ancient tree, offering flowers and candles in reverence. Eternal Flower, the story of the Moon of Souls. In a remote village, Mai sits at her loom, woven by the dim light of an oil lamp. Her delicate hands move nimbly, weaving intricate black and white patterns into the vibrant fabric. Soft whispers echo from the glowing patterns. Outside, Kaub stands at her window, his expression a mixture of love and quiet despair. In his dream, Kaub walked through a dark forest, his body shadowed by the moonlight filtering through the treetops. The whispers of leaves and the faint echoes of unseen spirits followed him. As he stepped into the forbidden land, his heart beat with anxiety and determination. As he walked deeper into the forest, a hidden forest field revealed a glowing pond. The waters of the pond reflected the bright spirit moon instead of the trees above. Kaub hesitated before stepping closer. The figure of a young woman with sad eyes appeared. Her translucent body emitted a gentle glow in the moonlight. The spirit spoke, her voice laced with a distant melody. "I am the 9 Niams," she said, her eyes filled with sorrow. She warned Kaub of an ancient curse before revealing an image in the swaying water. Mai stood alone, her face ashen, as mysterious figures surrounded her. In a mysterious forest under the moonlight of spirits, a glowing spirit appears before Kaub and Mai. With a resonant and sorrowful voice, the spirit tells of an ancient curse threatening the village, and reveals that only a journey into the spirit world can lift it. A glowing portal appears, surrounded by vines and glowing flowers. The moonlight glows on their faces as the two gather their courage and follow the order to enter the spirit world to face their destiny. Under the ghostly moon, Kaub knelt before Mai in an open space surrounded by glowing flowers, his hands trembling as he confessed, his voice filled with barely contained emotion. Mai's face was gentle, a single tear slipping down as she reached out to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. The village shaman stood at the edge of the forest, chanting in a solemn voice as he chanted a spell to prepare Kaub and Mai for their journey into the spirit world. The light from the lanterns twinkled against the darkness. The villagers stood around, their gazes filled with fear and awe. Kaub turned to look at Mai, their gazes meeting in determination. Their hands clasped tightly together, gathering their courage as they stepped into the unknown, their hearts filled with the fate that awaited them. A glowing ivy archway appeared before them, glowing like a sign of entry into the spirit world. As Kaub and Mai crossed the threshold, the air around them shifted, glowing with a mystical light, revealing a surreal landscape of floating islands floating in the air, glowing waterfalls, and supernatural beings moving slowly amidst swirling shades of gold and blue like a cosmic melody. Their journey was full of challenging tests. Kaub stumbled and fell into a field bathed in golden light. The image before him was Mai laughing with a man. The clarity of the image made doubt and pain seep into his heart. His body falling to the ground was actually an illusion. His face showed suffering. Mai's call echoed from afar, pulling him back to reality, shattering the illusion that had bound him. On a desolate plain shrouded in thick fog, Mai knelt beside Kaub's unconscious body, tears streaming down her cheeks as she held him in her arms. Her gaze was fixed on the dim light at the edge of the horizon. She gritted her teeth and gathered all her strength to lift him up without hesitation, the determination in her eyes shining brighter than the fear that surrounded her. Niam 9 appeared before them once more, her translucent body flickering like an extinguished flame, her voice trembling as she revealed a painful truth. She was the spirit of Kaub's former love, who had died protecting him in another life. Kaub's hazy memories returned, and his face was one of gnawing guilt and disbelief at the fate that bound them together. Ahead, a towering mountain appeared before their eyes. Its peak was decorated with a magnificent palace carved from intricate stone. A glowing green light shone from within, casting terrifying shadows across the steep cliff face. Kaub and Mai approached step by step, their hearts filled with fear, but their eyes shone with determination to face what lay ahead. Within the mysterious cave, a golden spinning shaft hovered above the altar, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. Shadows spread across the cave walls, reflecting lifelike movements. At that moment, a great spirit, Dab, emerged from the darkness, his eyes blazing like glowing embers. His voice reverberated through the cave walls as he challenged the existence of Kaub and Mai with a tone full of power and fury. Kaub lunged forward, ritual sword in hand, glowing with spiritual energy. Sparks exploded the moment his sword clashed with Dab. Their attack reverberated throughout the cave, the sound reverberating terrifyingly. Meanwhile, Mai cautiously approached the altar, her eyes locked on the glowing spindle in front of her. Mai's hand trembled as she slowly reached for the spindle, its light growing brighter with every step. Dab roared and charged at her, but Kaub blocked it with a final strike. The ground shook as Dab's power began to wane. Mai immediately grabbed the spindle in her hand. Suddenly, golden light exploded from the spindle. Dab screamed as his body dissolved into the light. The curse was broken, but Mai slowly faded along with the spindle's power. She turned to give Kaub one last sad smile before leaving forever. Kaub held the golden spindle high up, its light shining on a face full of suffering. Mai stepped forward, her voice trembling as she pleaded with him to stop. "There's no other way," Kaub whispered, tears streaming down his cheeks, before he gathered all his strength and slammed the spindle down with a firm blow. The shuttle's core shattered, releasing a golden light that engulfed the entire room. Mai's body melted into the light, her last smile radiant and sorrowful. Kaub fell to his knees, his trembling hands reaching out for hers as Mai's final whisper softly rang out, "I'll wait for you in the next life." The spirit moon faded as Kaub returned to the village, his face filled with sadness. The sacred tree stood taller than before, its flowers shining brighter than they had in hundreds of years. The villagers gathered around, their faces filled with astonishment reflecting the dawn of a new beginning. Years passed, and Kaub, now old and exhausted, knelt beneath the shade of the sacred tree, his trembling hands carefully planting a small tree beside it. He told Mai his story in a soft voice, filled with reverence and quiet hope in his eyes. As the moon of spirits rose once more, the young couple stood under the moonlight, their hands clasped together, unaware that a spirit was watching them. They stared at each other with deep love in their eyes, as if their souls had met again across time and lifetimes.